At my anniversary dinner, I planned to announce my new restaurant. Instead, my girlfriend handed me a gift box. Inside was a note that read, "I'm done. You're holding me back." Everyone laughed as she walked out. Our friends stared at me, waiting. I just smiled, because she didn't know what I had planned. 2 months later, she was broke and sobbing outside my bistro. I stood in the elevator, palms sweaty, heart pounding harder than it should have been for a party I helped plan. It was supposed to be my night, a celebration at last. After a decade of 12-hour shifts and burned forearms, I'd finally done it. Head chef. My own kitchen. My own menu. My moment. My name's Marcus Alvarez. I'm 32 years old, live in Baltimore, and I've spent the last 11 years busting my ass in hot kitchens across the city. I was supposed to reveal the news tonight, casually, like it wasn't the biggest moment of my career, surrounded by friends and tapas and champagne. Alicia, my girlfriend of 4 years, had helped plan the whole thing. She said it would be a soft launch of something new. I didn't realize she meant her new life. The rooftop bar was glowing under string lights when I stepped out. Our friends were gathered near the back table, laughing over sangria and small plates. Alicia wore this silky emerald dress that shimmered every time she moved. She looked incredible, like always. She kissed me on the cheek when I arrived and whispered, "I have a surprise for you too." I smiled, nerves bouncing inside me like popcorn. "You first." She reached into her purse and pulled out a small black box. For half a second, I thought it might be something serious. Jewelry? A key? A ring? She set it on the table in front of me and said, with a smile way too calm, "Open it." The room quieted as I flipped the lid. Inside was a neatly folded piece of paper. I unfolded it slowly. The words were typed, clean, cold, detached. "I'm done pretending. You're holding me back. It's over." That was it. No explanation. No punctuation at the end. Just a final sentence. I looked up. Alicia was already standing. Her smile now widened into something cruel. "Anyway," she said with a little shrug, "you'll be fine." Then she walked out. Just like that. In front of 30 people. Most of whom had no clue what just happened. A couple people let out a weird, nervous giggle. I heard someone whisper, "Is this a joke?" I stood there, holding the note like it might transform into something else if I stared hard enough. But it didn't. It stayed the same. Someone knocked over a fork. Someone else whispered, "Oh my God." I cleared my throat, tucked the note back in the box, and placed it on the table. "Thank you all for coming," I said, trying not to sound like I was underwater. "Seriously. There's plenty of food and wine, so don't let it go to waste." Nobody moved at first. But slowly, people began to eat again. Sip again. The music crept back up. The chatter returned in cautious spurts. I sat down, picked up a croquette, and chewed like nothing had happened. But in my mind, I was already planning. Not just a comeback. A reinvention. Alicia thought she was ending something tonight. But all she did was give me a reason to start fresh. On my terms. And when I do, she'll hear about it last. By the time I got home that night, it was almost 1 a.m. My apartment felt hollow, too clean, too quiet. I stood at the door for a second, keys in hand, just staring, like I was walking into someone else's life. In a way, I guess I was. I didn't cry. Not right away. First, I walked through each room like I was inspecting a crime scene. Alicia's perfume still hung in the bedroom air, faint and sharp. Her throw blanket was draped over the couch like she'd just left for coffee. Her coffee mug was still in the sink. I stood in front of it for a full minute, debating whether to throw it or wash it. I chose neither. Instead, I went to the closet and started pulling her stuff out. All of it. Hangers scraped along the bar as I moved quickly, more angry than sad. I folded her sweaters the way she used to fold mine, just to keep my hands busy. Her shoes went into boxes. Her beauty products into a grocery bag. I piled everything by the door and sat on the floor, feeling like a deflated balloon. It wasn't until I grabbed her purse off the hook that I found the receipts. 2 from a spa downtown. One for nearly $400. The other, $250. Both from weekends I remembered Alicia telling me she was at her cousin's helping with wedding stuff. Another from a boutique I knew she couldn't afford, unless she used the joint card. My name was on that account too. I sat back against the wall, receipts fanned out on the rug like evidence. I picked up her phone charger from the table and stared at it like it might explain something. But it didn't. It just sat there, useless and white and tangled. I don't know how long I sat there before I heard the knock. Jordan let himself in with the spare key before I could get up. "Hey," he said softly. "You left the party before I could say anything." I nodded. Figured it was that or set the place on fire. He didn't laugh. Just sat down beside me, cross-legged like we were kids again. For a while, we didn't talk. Then I finally said it out loud. She used our joint account to buy a $500 spa package, while telling me she couldn't chip in for groceries. Jordan rubbed his chin. "Damn. And I saw her phone a couple weeks ago. Messages from someone named D. Nothing graphic, but It was emotional. Sweet. They made plans to meet up at a music festival. He exhaled slowly. You think she's been cheating? I think she was halfway out the door for months. I just didn't want to admit it. Jordan didn't say I told you so, even though he'd warned me about her more than once. He just leaned back and said, you don't deserve that. No, I said. But I enabled it. I got up and poured us both a drink, bourbon. Neat. I didn't toast. Didn't make a speech. I just handed him the glass and said, she doesn't know I saw the texts. Or the charges. What are you going to do? I took a sip, stared out the window at the city lights. What I should have done a long time ago. Jordan nodded. What's that? Stop pretending I need her to build something real. And I meant it. The following Monday, I called a lawyer. Her name was Clarissa Ng, sharp as a chef's knife and twice as fast. I found her through a friend in restaurant circles, someone who specialized in small business transitions and, more importantly, asset protection. We met in her office downtown. I laid it all out. The joint bank account, the bakery property I inherited from my Aunt Lupe last year, the upcoming lease transfers, and my suspicion that Alicia had been siphoning funds. Clarissa listened without judgment. You want to freeze the joint account and secure the bakery lease in your name only, she repeated. That's right. You want it quiet? As quiet as a knife slipping into warm butter. She raised an eyebrow. Understood. By Friday, the paperwork was in motion. Alicia would wake up one morning and find the account frozen. Nothing removed, just inaccessible. I didn't want to drain it. I wanted her to know the party was over. I spent the rest of the week transferring my kitchen equipment, things I'd quietly purchased over the years and stored in the back of the old bakery space. Industrial burners, a refurbished pizza oven, racks of cookware, even the vintage espresso machine I'd driven to Philly to pick up myself. I moved everything into a rented storage unit a few blocks from the bakery. My name was the only one on the lease. Every contractor I contacted signed NDAs. I didn't post anything. No photos. No hints. Not even a big things coming on Instagram. I wanted the gossip mill hungry. Meanwhile, the social circles we used to share, restaurant friends, mutual acquaintances, started sniffing around. Hey, man, one old coworker texted, saw Alicia's post. You guys cool? Another messaged, was that real? What happened at the tapas thing? I kept my replies short. All good here. Just working on something new. Or, appreciate you checking in. Hope you're well. I didn't owe anyone a story. Alicia, on the other hand, was putting on a show. Her Instagram lit up with cozy cabin selfies tagged in Vermont. One in a hot tub with a guy whose face was mostly cropped out, but not so cropped you couldn't tell he was someone. The tag said at Dorian Wave, and that rang a bell. D, short for Dorian. Minor local pop star. Had a radio single 3 years ago and a few thousand followers now. I remembered Alicia saying once, he follows me. I think he's rebooting his sound. I didn't care. Not really. Okay, maybe a little. But mostly, I watched quietly. She had no idea I'd started laying the groundwork for a full-on rebuild. Not a comeback, but a rebirth. The bakery would become something else. My place, my design, my food. I started sketching menu ideas on napkins again, like I did when I was 23. Locally grown ingredients, sourdough starters, seasonal specials. No more watered-down crowd pleases. No more split decisions. I'd run the kitchen. Alone. One night, Jordan came by while I was assembling prep tables with an Allen wrench. He looked around the gutted space, peeling linoleum, dusty windows, exposed pipes, and whistled. You're really doing this, he said. Yeah, I said, tightening the last bolt. And I'm doing it right. No fanfare. No drama. Just quiet movement. Because that's how storms really begin, without warning. It was a Tuesday morning, just shy of 2 weeks since Alicia dropped that note in front of 30 people and walked out smiling. I was in my kitchen, making eggs, when the buzzer rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, but I buzzed them in any way. Maybe it was the contractor with the backsplash samples. Instead, it was Alicia. She stood at my door in yoga pants and a sweatshirt that still had one of my old restaurant logos on it. She looked surprised when I opened the door without hesitation, like maybe she thought I'd slam it in her face or fall to pieces. I did neither. I forgot my Pilates gear, she said, smiling faintly, like that explained everything. I stepped aside. It's boxed up, right by the door. She blinked. You packed my stuff? Yeah, I said, keeping my voice level. Did it that night. She looked past me into the apartment, maybe searching for signs of something grief, mess, regret. Instead, her eyes landed on the locksmith van idling at the curb. What's that for? I handed her the bag with her gear. New locks. I figured now's a good time. A flicker of offense flashed across her face, like I'd broken some unspoken rule by moving on faster than she'd expected. Are you serious? I am, I said calmly. If there's anything else you need, Clarissa, my lawyer, can coordinate with you. Her smile dropped. You got a lawyer? Yeah, I said, crossing my arms. I thought we'd stop pretending things were casual. A silence hung between us. She looked thrown off, and not just by the legal talk. She stepped back, then paused at the stairwell just as Jordan pulled up and got out of his car. He was carrying 2 coffee cups and a clipboard. Alicia's eyes narrowed as she looked between us. She didn't say anything, but I could see it in her face, jumping to conclusions, probably assuming the worst. That night, she posted something vague to her story. Some people move on a little too quickly. Funny how silence speaks louder than truth. I didn't respond. Didn't even screenshot it. But I did make sure the locks were changed that afternoon. She could have the last word online if she wanted. I already had the last word where it mattered, in real life. By the end of the month, the paper went up in the windows. Not to hide the bakery's emptiness, but to mark the beginning. I called it loam, like the rich, dark soil where new things grow. It felt right. Rooted. Quietly alive. I didn't announce anything. No launch parties. No countdowns. Just a soft opening with handwritten invites and a menu that fit on one chalkboard. Friends came. Locals wandered in. A few food critics I'd cooked for over the years stopped by out of curiosity. No one tagged it online. No one even knew who was behind it until they walked through the door. I was there every day, from open to close. My hands on the dough, the knives, the flame. It felt like breathing again. No noise, no flash, just food, honest and clean. The opposite of what Alicia and I had once tried to build together, all hype and hashtags and imported truffle oil. Jordan helped behind the scenes, coordinating with vendors and handling bookings. He also brought in his cousin Elle, who freelanced with a local lifestyle magazine. She stopped by one afternoon to take photos, just for the Underground Eats section, she said. A week later, the piece ran. Loam, the bistro that feels like coming home. The write-up praised the menu's simplicity, the staff's warmth, the space's clean, reclaimed design. No mention of me by name, just a quote. This place isn't about ego. It's about roots. The day it ran, my inbox started pinging. Mostly local folks asking for reservations. A couple offers for pop-ups and collabs. And then one DM that stopped me mid-scroll. It was from a Dorian Wavy assistant. Hey Marcus, I manage Dorian. We're hosting a private birthday dinner next weekend in the city. Alicia said you were the best in town. Are you available to cater? I stared at the screen for a solid minute. No anger. No second thoughts. Just a slow smile. I didn't reply right away. I forwarded the message to Jordan and simply wrote. Decline. No comment. He texted back a few minutes later. Savage. You good? I wrote. Better than good. Because I realized something in that moment. This wasn't revenge. This wasn't about getting even. I wasn't trying to make Alicia regret anything. I was just making something better, with or without her attention. The DMs kept coming. Local chefs wanted to tour the space. A small podcast wanted to do a segment. People were asking where I sourced my herbs, what my prep schedule looked like. The buzz was real, but it was quiet. Earned, not engineered. Alicia hadn't posted about me directly in weeks. But I knew she saw the article. I saw her lurking on Elle's profile, liking photos from Loam without tagging herself. That was the difference. I wasn't in her world anymore. But somehow, I'd made her aware of mine. Not with a speech. Not with a clapback. Just with work. And soil. And silence. It was a warm Sunday, one of those early spring mornings where people flood the streets like they've been released from hibernation. I was picking up produce from the local farmer's market. Eggs, ramps, sour cherries, chatting with a couple vendors who'd started saving the best stuff for me. I was halfway to my truck, arms full of bags, when I heard someone call my name. Sharp. Familiar. Marcus. I turned, and there she was. Alicia. Hair curled just so, big sunglasses, wearing a neutral-toned wrap like she belonged in a perfume ad. Except her expression didn't match the look. She was pissed. We need to talk, she said, stepping in front of me like this was a planned meeting. It wasn't. I set the bags down gently in the truck bed. I've got deliveries to make. She crossed her arms. You really ignored the catering request? I leaned against the tailgate. Wasn't a good fit. She laughed, sharp and bitter. You're seriously sabotaging me over this? I blinked. Over what? This. Us. All of it. Dorian broke up with me, you know. I stayed quiet. She continued. He found out I stopped by your place a couple weeks ago. Said I wasn't over you. Accused me of leading him on. It got messy. I'm sorry to hear that, I said. I wasn't. She stared at me, almost daring me to say more. When I didn't, she snapped, you could have at least had the decency to reply. I didn't think a reply was necessary. Oh, come on, Marcus. She stepped closer. You're really just going to pretend none of this meant anything? That I didn't matter? I took a breath. I could have unloaded everything right there, the spa receipts, the text with Dorian, the way she humiliated me in public like it was performance art. But I didn't. Instead, I said, I knew. Her eyes flicked. Knew what? I saw the charges. And the messages. I've known for a while. Her mouth opened slightly, then closed. I just didn't respond, I continued, because I wasn't interested in revenge. I was focused on moving forward. She looked rattled. So this whole thing, Loam, the article, your little mystery bistro, this was all about getting ahead? I nodded. Exactly. Not getting even. Just getting ahead. Alicia's sunglasses slipped down her nose a little, and she didn't bother fixing them. For the first time since the rooftop night, she looked unsure of herself. You didn't even give me a chance to explain. I looked her in the eyes. You gave me your explanation in a typed note. Remember? Silence. She glanced away, then back. I guess I deserve that. I didn't reply. She finally turned to leave. I hope it's worth it. It already is, I said, reaching for the driver's door. She didn't look back, and I didn't drive off feeling victorious. I felt clear, clean, like I'd rinsed off the last of the oil from a burned-out engine and could finally breathe in new air. No more unfinished business. Just open roads. 2 weeks after the market run-in with Alicia, things at Loam were finally humming. The brunch crowd was doubling each weekend, and we were building a steady dinner following. I'd even started to recognize regulars, college professors, couples with baby strollers, a guy from the firehouse who always ordered the trout. Then came the inspection. It was a Thursday afternoon. We were halfway through prep when the city inspector showed up, clipboard in hand, no warning. He wasn't rude, but he was thorough. Too thorough. By the time he finished, he'd flagged our fire suppression system. Said it hadn't been updated in over a year. That wasn't true. I'd had a contractor replace it during the first wave of renovations. But he claimed the paperwork was incomplete and issued a temporary closure until it could be reviewed. We had to shut our doors that night. I called Jordan the second the inspector left. He was furious. That's insane. We filed every form. They signed off last month. I know, I said, rubbing the back of my neck. But something's off. You don't just get randomly flagged for a system we literally replaced. There was a pause. You think Alicia? He asked carefully. I don't know, I said. But the timing's interesting. He sighed. Want me to go public? I can tweet out a statement, mention the situation, let people know we're being unfairly targeted. No, I said firmly. No drama. Let them wonder. Then what do? We pivot. That night, I drove across town and had a conversation with Mel, who owned an old food truck she hadn't used since the pandemic. By morning, I'd bought it from her. The fryer still worked. The paint was chipped, but the engine ran. We slapped a logo on the side. Loam on wheels. Jordan made a TikTok of us prepping in the back of the truck, captioned, when the bistro closes, the streets open up. It took off. By the end of the week, we had a line around the block. Locals followed us on social media to find out where we'd be each day. Students filmed their first bites. A local influencer called it the best bougie food in a brown paper box. Alicia posted another vague message on Instagram. Funny how some people can't survive a closed door without turning it into a circus. I didn't respond. I didn't even care. Because we weren't just surviving. We were thriving. I served a carrot soup that sold out in 20 minutes. A seared mushroom sandwich that landed on a top 10 street eats list in the Baltimore Banner. Every night, I stood in the back of that truck, my apron dusted in flour, the scent of roasted garlic in the air, thinking, this is what resilience looks like. No revenge. No drama. Just adaptation. And it tasted damn good. I met Elle on a Sunday morning at the community garden across from the farmer's market. Jordan had told me she volunteered there on weekends, helping build raised beds and plan seasonal rotations. I didn't think much of it until she came up to me while I was picking up herbs from one of our regular growers. You're Marcus, right? She asked, wiping dirt off her hands onto a faded Orioles hoodie. Depends who's asking, I said with a small grin. She laughed. I'm Elle. I did the Loam article. Jordan's cousin. Oh, right. You made us sound way fancier than we are. You did that all on your own, she said. But listen, I was wondering if you'd be interested in something. She explained they were planning a community dinner in the garden, something local and sustainable, featuring seasonal ingredients from the plots they cultivated. They needed someone to help design the menu and cook. Nothing huge. Just 40 or 50 people. Neighbors. Volunteers. Families. No cameras. No clout. Just food. I said yes before she even finished the pitch. We met up that week to brainstorm. She brought a notebook filled with sketches of long communal tables and solar-powered string lights. I brought a box of scones and a list of dishes we could do on a tight budget. Over the next few days, we started planning a garden brunch menu. Eggs baked in squash blossoms. Herb focaccia with whipped lemon ricotta. Strawberry basil tarts. It wasn't romantic, at first. Just easy. Comfortable. She didn't ask me about Alicia or the rooftop night. She didn't need to. What she did say, while sipping cold brew on a break, was, you seem like someone who doesn't waste energy on what you've already left behind. That stuck with me. We worked late that Friday night, setting up folding chairs in the garden, testing a portable grill, prepping ingredients under the glow of work lights. And somewhere between stacking milk crates and slicing peaches, I realized I wasn't just enjoying the food or the event. I was enjoying her. Not in a fireworks and roses kind of way. Not a rebound. But in that slow, grounding kind of way. The kind where you find yourself listening more than talking. Where you feel safe enough to just be quiet together. After everyone left the garden dinner, she helped me carry the empty pans back to my truck. We stood in the cool evening breeze, not in a rush to say goodbye. I like working with you, she said, tying her hair up with a band. I like breathing again, I replied. And I meant it. The pop-up was running behind at night. We'd sold out of the roasted squash bowls faster than expected, and I was standing in the back of the truck, wiping sweat from my forehead when I saw her. Alicia. She stood near the folding chairs we'd set up beside the truck, arms crossed, sunglasses perched on her head even though it was past sundown. She wasn't dressed for the chill, just a silk blouse and heels too high for the gravel lot. She looked out of place. And a little unraveled. I stepped down from the truck and walked over. You okay? She nodded slowly, but her voice shook. Can we talk? I glanced back at the truck. Jordan gave me a look, but didn't say anything. I turned back to Alicia. We can talk. But not here. We walked a few feet toward the far edge of the lot, where someone had set up a small fire pit surrounded by cinderblock benches. She sat without waiting for me, staring into the flames like she expected them to say something. After a long pause, she finally spoke. I keep thinking about that night on the rooftop. I didn't say anything. I thought it'd feel good, she said. Leaving like that. Taking control. But I was wrong. I let her keep going. I miss you. Not the money, not the house or the status stuff. I miss the way you believed in me. Her voice cracked. No one's ever looked at me like that before. Like I mattered more than the performance. I watched the firelight flicker across her face. The makeup didn't hide how tired she looked. I knelt down by the fire and tossed in a small scrap of cardboard, one of the tags from our packaging boxes. It curled and blackened, gone in seconds. I don't hate you, I said finally. She looked up, surprised. I don't, I repeated. I just see you clearly now. Her lips parted like she was about to say something. Maybe to defend herself. Maybe to argue. But I kept going. I used to think if I just gave more, tried harder, you'd eventually believe in me the way I believed in you. But now I get it. You weren't waiting for love. You were waiting for leverage. She flinched like I'd slapped her. That's not fair. No, I said. It's just true. The silence that followed was long and uneven. Then she asked softly, so that's it? I stood up. Yeah, that's it. She nodded slowly. Her mascara had started to smudge. Not full tears, just enough to show this wasn't the performance anymore. I guess I deserve this, she whispered. No, I said. You deserved better than how you treated people. That's what you never understood. She looked up at me one last time. You really moved on. I had to, I said. Because otherwise, I would have stayed stuck in something that was never built to last. She wiped at her face, stood slowly, and walked away without saying goodbye. And I didn't chase her. Didn't feel the need to make sure she got home safe. I just watched the flames flicker and felt, finally, at peace. No revenge. No closure speech. Just a quiet ending that didn't need applause. And that was enough. It had been exactly 1 year since the rooftop. 1 year since the note, the walkout, and the slow-burning fuse that lit everything else. And tonight, under the soft glow of hanging lights in the garden behind Loam, I raised my glass to a table full of people who showed up for the right reasons. The anniversary harvest dinner wasn't huge, just about 30 guests. Our regulars, a few local growers, some friends, and the staff who had become like family. Long tables stretched across the lawn, covered in linen runners and mismatched candles. Platters of roasted root vegetables and warm bread passed between hands like gifts. Elle sat at the far end, laughing at something Jordan said. Her dress had pockets, and her hair was pulled back with a pencil like always. She caught my eye and smiled. I smiled back. I stood, gently tapping my fork against a wine glass. The table quieted. I'll keep this short, I said. You all know I'm not great with speeches. A few chuckles. But I just want to say thank you. To this team. To Jordan, who believed in this place before I even did. And to Elle, who helped us build something real, not just out of concrete or menus, but out of heart. Elle blushed, eyes on her plate. I used to think success meant visibility, status, recognition. Now I know it's about peace, roots, community, and good food, especially good food. Laughter, glasses raised. I sat down with a quiet exhale. After the last guest left and the tables were cleared, I went back inside to the office. The air smelled like baked apples and charred rosemary. I opened the bottom drawer of my desk and pulled out a small wooden box I hadn't touched in months. Inside were just two things, the typed note Alicia gave me that night, and the printed catering request from Dorian's assistant. I looked at them for a moment, not with anger, not even nostalgia, just perspective. Then I folded them carefully and placed them back in. Archived, not forgotten. I locked the drawer and stood up. From the patio, I heard Elle call out, "Hey, you coming? We've got dishes." I smiled. On my way. I stepped outside into the evening air. The breeze smelled faintly of thyme and soil. Around us, the garden bed stood full and quiet, ready for whatever came next. No more bitterness. No more looking back. Just fresh soil. A new life. And this time, it was all mine.